Beth Lavinder. I am here in the beautiful Hall River Ballroom in Saxville Hall, North Carolina, just a few miles down the hill from my dance barn. And when I'm not hooping there, I'm often here or in Carrboro, North Carolina. So I'm going to do a little demonstration of and explanation of tracing, which is a technique that I really like. And it really works well with these sort of smooth, light polypropylene hoops. Just for a little bit of history, I've been hooping for about 11 or so years, and this is actually Baxter's, one of his old hoops that he either gave me or I stole. And you can see it's quite large, made from 3/4 inch thick irrigation tubing. It's got a bit of weight to it. So these hoops definitely, they're a little bit like Cadillacs or Buicks. They inform our dance in a certain way, so we tend to use a little bit more aggression, a little bit more strength, a little bit more gripping of the hoop in order to control it. The point of contact is more of a specific point as opposed to something that's more spread out along the body, so it's very distinct. These hoops are great teachers to learn how to core hoop and how to dance. Eventually, at least for me, I started having sustained wrist injuries, so we decided to go to a smaller hoop, but instead of doing something like this, which would have been the smart thing to do, we decided to, because this is a child's hoop, this is way too little, we decided to use instead the same tubing, but to actually take material out of the tubing to lighten it up, sort of like a wiffle hoop. So this, yeah, absolutely. So this hoop has 660 countersunk holes drilled into it. It took me a few hours to make. There's a lot of embodied energy content in this hoop. And it did make it slightly lighter, but I was still hurting myself with some of the movements that I was doing with the hoop. And it's rather rough, so there's less of a tendency to want to stroke it or feel its surface. So eventually we got smart and we went down to the polypropylene, this super light, sort of the sports car of hoops. These are quick and nimble, and they are very responsive. Turning the corner in one of these bigger hoops is sort of like turning the corner with a Cadillac. You want to slow down first, take your time. With these little hoops, they're so responsive that you can kind of bang them around quite effectively, and they'll bounce back. But what happens sometimes is that there's, at least for me, there was a loss of a sense of connection with the hoop. And I also tended to hoop really fast with these because they want to go fast. So tracing is a way to slow down the revolution of the hoop and to increase our connection with the hoop, our actual physical connection and sort of our energetic connection. Tracing is the marriage of familiar techniques with an additional point of contact. And that point of contact is usually the offhand, but not always. And it can be ephemeral, just sort of a light stroke along the surface of the hoop, or it can be something that is more sustained. So I can give you a little bit of a sense of what that might be like if I'm doing an isolation. I'm not very good at isolations. I kind of like them to be a little bit wobbly and human and organic. So this would be an isolation. If I was to trace along this isolation, I would have my hands splayed and open. You can, of course, channel it. But in order for you to see, I can just do my isolation and let this hand sort of roll, slide along the outside of it. Now, if I'm going to go into a weave, I can get my weave going. And I might just have the fingers hooked and get that rhythm going. In order to control this, I might bring in a little bit of grip initially, and as I bring the hoop down on this side, the off side, I'm going to have my offhand ready to stroke the outside of the hoop. I'm just going to let it slide along the outside of the hoop, not interrupting the revolution or the path. If anything, my tracing hand is supporting and kind of suspending the hoop in that revolution. So that's one form of tracing. And you can see that the trace is all on one side of the body, and then when I bring it to the other side of the body, the hands act as one, and I do that revolution, and then I open up again. So with this trace, I am allowing my hands to part and then come back together again. So there's that going on, and then my entire body is involved in this revolution and in this manipulation. I'll show you on the with my left hand. So this is one hand guiding the hoop, the other hand tracing. So again, I'm going to start my weave on the off side. My off hand is going to just be here ready, sort of available to the outside surface of the hoop. I'm going to lead with my thumb, and I'm going to swing the hoop out my weave and just allow that hand to stroke the outside surface. It doesn't have to be continuous. When the hand comes away, I call it ghosting. When the hand touches the hoop, I call that tracing. So that's one way to do the tracing in a weave. If I want to go in the reverse current, so that's a falling current where the hoop is going down on my sun side from sky to earth. If I want to go the other way, it's a little bit more complicated, and this involves more of a samurai grip. So again, I'm going to start on the off side of my body. I'm going to have my operating hand inside the hoop with the thumb pointing up, but I'm going to lead with my pinky. My tracing hand is going to come above my thumb, and I'm going to slide the hoop in an isolation. When I get to this point where my wrist might break, I'm going to let go, allow the hoop to roll onto the back of my hand, and re-grip. So I can continue this, or I can bring it to the other side and do both sides of the body. And in that case, what happens is there's a transfer. So when I get to this point, the operating hand releases, the hoop rides on the back of the hand, I bring the hoop to the other side of the body, and all of a sudden my other hand is the operating hand. The tracing hand I can trace with the palm or with the back of the hand. Think of the hands as being very malleable and constantly shifting and moving around the hoop. So now I'm going to go on this side, leading with the pinky. I come to the back of the hand, lift the hoop up, switch to the other side, and in real time it looks like this. And again, I like to use the entire body, allow the bending of the legs, the knees, the hips, that movement to smooth it out and grace it up. And there's as much happening with the operating hand, which is doing the isolation, as the hand, the back of the hand when it lifts. So really feel for that lifting of the hoop on the back of the hand. I'll be in Sedona in October of 2014, and that will be a beautiful location. I hope to see you there.